I'm really pleased and honored to be here at the Mackinac Policy Conference talking about Ford Motor Company and our path forward and how we see the future. And I hope as you hear me speaking about Ford, you also understand some of the parallel implications for our cities and for our state as well. And I'd also like to thank Sandy for the invitation to speak about mobility and what this future looks like. And you know, it's kind of ironic that we're here on Mackinac Island with some of the most wonderful mobility choices available. I do though appreciate being able to walk, being able to go in a horse-drawn carriage or a bicycle, but great to be here nonetheless. You know, we've always been known, obviously, as Ford Motor Company, but I think a better name, and maybe increasingly, will be known as Ford Mobility Company. And really, it harkens back to our founder, Henry Ford, and his vision of open highways for all mankind. And our belief that the freedom of movement is really one of the significant pillars of human progress. A belief that our passion is around great cars and great trucks. And that's not going to change. And we'll continue to build great motors as well, whether they're internal combustion or electric. But increasingly, we're also committed to becoming the world's most trusted, there's that word, trusted provider of mobility services and solutions, designing smart vehicles and systems for a smart world that help people move more safely, confidently, and freely. And this isn't really something that's new for us. It's not something that we've just stumbled upon. In fact, more than 6 years ago, in 2012, at the Mobile World Congress in Barcelona, our chairman, Bill Ford, set us out on this new path, this new mobility vision. Just like his leadership in the environment and sustainability, Bill articulated clearly that today's mobility model will not work for our tomorrow. We need to take a different approach to provide access to mobility, to help improve the quality of life for people around the world, for the cities in which they live and move, for our health, for economic stability, and for our businesses to grow and to thrive. But achieving this future, ladies and gentlemen, will require different kinds of mobility solutions. So let's take a step back and think about how we got to where we are today. You know, again, Henry Ford's vision, open highways for all mankind, and accessible, affordable, capable transportation, individually owned, literally, figuratively, set free people. All of a sudden, you didn't have to live close to where you worked. You had the ability to travel long distances comfortably. It dramatically reshaped our society. In fact, I dare say that over the last 100+ years, this mobility model generated much of the wealth, the prosperity, and the satisfaction that we've all had the ability to experience. It was, in fact, the perfect solution for its time. But the world has changed. More and more people aspire to having that affordable transportation. More and more people want to be liberated. But if we think about that single point solution, individually owned automobiles, today there are more than 1 billion vehicles in operation around the world. And if we just project forward in terms of population growth rates and the growth in affluence, if we continue at the same rates and the same pace, it would be predicted, or it's predicted that by 2030 there would be more than 2 billion vehicles on our roads. Ladies and gentlemen, we understand that is not a sustainable model. Our needs have evolved. So how do we create a better city of tomorrow? Thank you, and as you can see from that video, the answer is a different mobility model, and it's one that offers solutions to our current overburdened and obsolete transportation system. Now, we can have the future that was envisioned in that video by leveraging strengths across our industry and working in partnership with governments, agencies, cities, and communities. And we also need to leverage some key foundational technologies. And I'm not going to get too deep with you today, but I do want to explain to you some of the things that we're doing within our company and within our business and how we're using those in terms of connecting with the broader ecosystems around us. There are three key areas of focus for us: connectivity, cellular vehicle to everything technology, or I'll refer to that as CV to X, and the transportation mobility cloud. I'm going to take a closer look at each of those. First, when we talk about connectivity, that's really the foundation of our strategy. And, you know, for the longest time, actually dating back to 2007, we've used sync inside our vehicles, and we've leveraged sync's ability to connect with your smartphone that you bring into the vehicle, because we've seen how smartphones increasingly become the means by which, or the mode that our lives revolve around. And so we're going to continue to leverage sync in terms of connecting with your smartphone to take advantage of the applications, the communications capability, the content, the storage. But we're also recognizing that the vehicle itself deserves and needs its own embedded data connection. And so we're aggressively expanding this core cellular-based connectivity across our entire lineup so that all of our new vehicles, beginning in 2019, will be equipped with this connectivity within the US and with China, and we expect that by 2020, more than 90% of our vehicles will be connected. We're also undertaking a fundamental change in the vehicle's control module and electrical architecture so that beginning in 2020, new vehicles will be capable of over-the-air updates for key modules such as our powertrain control modules, our anti-lock braking systems. And in addition to updating these modules, we'll also be able to deliver new services and new solutions even after those vehicles have long been on the road. And again, leveraging this connection, we'll have the ability to share data within communities, being able to bring significant benefits such as reducing gridlock, freeing up curb space, decreasing road hazards, and potentially even returning valuable green space, like you saw in that video, into our neighborhoods. Now, the second piece of this technology builds on that core connectivity to take it to another level. Because in order for all the components on this mobility network to be able to communicate, they actually need to speak the same language. And to help achieve that goal, we are working to validate this technology that we call cellular vehicle to everything, or CV to X. And it will enable vehicles to communicate with each other directly, vehicles communicating with city infrastructure like stoplights, traffic signs, vehicles even being able to communicate with bicyclists or pedestrians through their smartphones, for instance. And the result can be a beautifully orchestrated movement of modes, loads, and roads. And this isn't futuristic. This isn't something that we've got to wait years and years or wait until 5G is prevalent around the country. It's something that can happen right now. And we're committed to ensuring that this connectivity and this communication between vehicles and cities is fast and safe and secure. And again, it will open up the possibilities of sharing data within communities. And it builds on the core cellular connectivity that will already be in our vehicles. And there are two modes that complement each other. First is direct, so vehicles being able to communicate directly with each other without the need to go through the network or a cell tower, for instance. But it will also have the capability of doing that longer range communication as well. And so we believe these complementary modes make tons of sense as we look at how to orchestrate mobility systems going forward in the future. You know, another aspect as well in terms of building on that cellular model, we'll take advantage of where the rest of the industry, where other communities, other companies are already headed as well. It's projected that by 2025, more than 5 billion devices or things will be connected. And cellular connectivity will form the basis of most of those connections. Now let me talk about a specific example and how it might be relevant for our state and for our cities. Between 2007 and 2017, more than 150,000 cell towers were deployed across the United States in order to provide communication capability for 3G and then 4G within our cell phones, for instance. Now, one of the things that you need to understand about the transition to 5G, and again, not to get too deep or too technical, but the wavelengths are shorter and the frequencies are higher, and that will enable greater throughput, greater bandwidth. But the characteristics of that spectrum also mean that it's more subject to interference from things like glass and concrete in buildings, for instance. And so the density of those cells, and they'll be much smaller in this case, but the density needs to be much, much, much higher. And so again, I said 150,000 cell towers built over the last 10 years. It's projected that over the next 8 years, 770,000 small cell sites will need to be deployed. And the range of those cellular towers that we see today is really, it's measured in kilometers or miles. The range of those microcells will be measured in feet and meters. And so we're talking about a much denser connectivity network. And as a result, you'll have network companies talking to cities about leveraging stoplights or stop signs in order to create this mesh, in order to create the network for 5G to allow that communication. Infrastructure smarter. Wouldn't it be nice if that same microcell that was propagating the 5G signal was also capable of communicating directly with vehicles to indicate the timing of the stoplight, for instance, or to leverage cameras or LiDAR to depict or characterize an intersection? We believe that those win-win possibilities are right at our fingertips. Next slide, please. And now, also, I'd like to talk about something that we call the Transportation Mobility Cloud. Now, the way to think about this is the hub for the controls, the systems, the data, and the intersections that basically allow all this orchestration to work. We actually began to partner with a small company called Autonomic in order to build up this cloud network for our own vehicles. And we actually liked what they were doing so much that we bought the company. Now, one of the founders of this company was also one of the chief architects of Amazon Web Services. And for those of you that may not be familiar, Amazon Web Services is one of the biggest, in fact, the biggest cloud provider that we have today. And it actually started in a similar way that the Transportation Mobility Cloud is starting within Ford. Amazon saw that they needed to take advantage of cloud storage and computing, and so they began to build that capability internally. They understood that really this isn't really differentiating, right? It's not anything that sets one company apart from another company. What differentiates you is your experiences and the solutions that you deliver on that platform. And so they opened it up to other companies. And in fact, some of Amazon's competitors also leverage Amazon Web Services. And we envision a similar scenario with the Transportation Mobility Cloud. It will connect diverse components of urban mobility systems from connected vehicles, mass transit, pedestrians, city infrastructure, service providers, with the goal of orchestrating a safer, more efficient, and sustainable transportation network. And the cloud is open, secure, and it will provide the necessary building blocks for these smart mobility applications, such as routing self-driving vehicles, managing large-scale fleets, or even helping residents plan their transit journeys. And we're actually inviting others to join us in helping shape this shared platform. Automakers, large-scale fleet operators, public transit operators as well. We believe everyone can share in the value that will be created by this new mobility platform. And again, we think it provides a means of orchestration, a means of connecting devices, people, cities, systems in a more harmonious way. It also will be part of what we leverage as we bring autonomous vehicles to market. Now, we've been partnering with a company called Argo AI, who've had more than a decade of experience combined with us in terms of developing this technology. And we're working together to also develop the robust business models that will be necessary, in addition to the rigorous testing that will lead to scaled autonomous vehicle deployment by Ford beginning in 2021. Now, different than some, our development of these self-driving autonomous vehicles is focused on the technology specifically, yes, but also the human interactions, understanding that this needs to be a human-centered approach, not being obsessed with technology for technology's sake. And we'll also focus not just on moving people, but moving goods as well. And we're undertaking business model and user experience pilots with strategic partners and sufficiently and aggressively and thoroughly testing the elements of our AV experience for real customers. Because it's not just about the autonomous vehicles and the technology. It's about how people will use them in the real world. All these tests will contribute to an end user experience that delivers real solutions to today's mobility challenges. And to help ensure that the testing regimes and the development can continue and that we do develop the right solutions, we need to work together so that the state of Michigan can create the right environment to attract the right talent and foster the innovation and development that will help this state lead in creating the world's mobility solutions. And to do that, we have to be careful not to rush into decisions that would risk inhibiting or restricting the growth of this technology. Now, we already have really great examples of how this state is already leading the way in creating that high-tech collaborative environment. And so we want to personally thank all of our state and federal leaders that have been involved in helping us make this progress. Think, for instance, of M-City at the University of Michigan, the world's first full-scaled simulated urban environment designed expressly for testing the performance, safety of connected and automated vehicles under controlled and realistic conditions. We also have the great example of the American Center for Mobility at the old Willow Run Airport. That's also a testing and product development facility for the future of mobility. And again, it's designed to enable the safe validation of connected and autonomous vehicles and also accelerating the development of voluntary standards. And we should all be proud of Michigan for fostering the development of these facilities and programs like these. And another great example of working together in the state of Michigan, next slide please, is our what we call non-emergency medical transport, or GO-RIDE. This is a business that launched right here in Michigan, and it highlights the positive benefits of being able to work within our communities. We worked with Beaumont Health Systems to develop this unique human-centered transportation service for people with mobility challenges, similar to what the governor just referred to. We've combined our expertise in vehicles with our strong IT and software development capabilities, and we're leveraging the Transportation Mobility Cloud to develop this service that we're really, really proud of. Also, we're playing for huge stakes here. Today, what I call the hardware business, right, selling vehicles, is roughly about $2.2 trillion globally. Our share of that's about 6%. The broader mobility space, which would be everything outside of, say, airplanes, for instance, represents another $6.6 trillion of revenue. And it's expected to grow to a total of $11.6 trillion over the next few years. Right now, Ford's share of that is only that 6% of the 2.3 trillion. We have the opportunity to broaden and develop new services, new capabilities, and again, not just Ford playing for this, but our state as well. And so, in conclusion, how can Michigan lead? How can Michigan be at the forefront? First, recognizing that this rapid change is upon us, and it's an opportunity that we can grasp and help shape the future. From within Michigan, we need to focus on ensuring that our programs in science, technology, engineering, and math appeal to boys and girls in schools, and that they aren't just accessible to the fortunate few, but to all our kids. We want to bring the best from outside of Michigan into Michigan and fostering a state environment of innovation and growth so that the best talent thinks of Michigan as the place to go to create change. We need great regional transport. We need to foster some of the green sprouts that are already growing in the Detroit metro area, for instance, in terms of the food scene and the tech scene, the Movement Festival, for instance, that just concluded last weekend. At Ford, we're also doing things differently. You may have seen we've just moved some of our AV and EV teams to Corktown in a building called The Factory, and we're thinking that that is the right place to help us attract the kind of talent that we need. I mentioned Autonomic, the startup that's doing the Transportation Mobility Cloud. They will bring a Detroit office as well, bringing Silicon Valley jobs to Detroit. These are just a few of the opportunities that exist if we work together to deliver real mobility solutions. And so we invite everyone to join us in leading this change together. Thank you very much.